Servers of Reddit, what's your best date gone wrong story? I was serving a guy who was obviously being stood up. He had reserved in advance and came in about 10 minutes early. He seems pretty calm but is constantly checking his watch and phone. After about 30 minutes he orders a large pizza. Another 20 minutes pass and his pizza arrives and is placed in front of him. At this point I'm feeling really bad but have no idea what to do. He leaves the pizza untouched for about 15 minutes before finally having a couple slices. Probably an hour and a half after he originally arrived he decides to leave. He's about to pack up his pizza when one of the other servers decides to take her break and chooses to sit with him. I quit working there a couple months later but as far as I know they're still dating. Maybe that's just how he picks up waitresses. Had a couple come to dine in and they had the 3-course meal and everything. The guy had mentioned to our host that he was proposing. Arranged a bottle of champagne to be delivered to the table once dessert was ordered. That's when he was planning on proposing. Dessert is ordered. Long awkward silence at the table. She's tearing up, grabs her purse, apologizes and leaves. Thankfully, we had all been keeping an eye on them. We wanted to see a cute yes moment, and the server didn't put through the order for the champagne. We all could see it was a rejection. 10 minutes later, his parents arrive and tell the host that they're excited to meet their future daughter-in-law. I'll never forget that poor host's face as she led them over to his table, him alone. Had this couple obviously on their first date and the poor guy was so visibly nervous he was just sitting there with these wide deer in the headlights eyes, profusely sweating, like drenched, and I think they exchanged a total 3 words the whole date. When I took the guy's order his voice cracked, making the situation that much worse. Poor guy. Hope he's doing alright. My husband was so nervous on our first date that he was nearly a different man. He hardly said a word and would just answer my questions. We were walking up a hill and I decided to pretend I needed help so he would hold my hand. He was also too shy to kiss me. 2 months later he was finally comfortable with me and I realized that he is very outgoing, talkative, and hyper. A guy made a reservation saying he was going to propose. He asked for a special table and for dessert to come with a sparkler candle and "Will you marry me" written on it. I bring out the cake. The manager follows me with 2 glasses of champagne. My co-workers are cheering. We set everything down and walk away. They end up having a serious, quiet discussion and it is very obvious that she is rejecting the proposal. Then 3 of their friends show up and sit at the table, all excited thinking their friends just got engaged. But it quickly became apparent to them that it was not the case. It's very quiet and awkward at the table. The woman who was being proposed to left, and the reject and his friends got wasted. He gave me a 20% tip too, which was nice considering how crappy his night had been. So he proposed before they even discussed marriage. Ugh. I once served a blind date. She got up to go to the bathroom and he told me to guess how old she was. Turns out about 10 years older than she looked. He wasn't thrilled about it. He told me he was thinking about bailing. Ended up sticking it out. They were the last table in the restaurant and when the buses started cleaning near them he threw a fit and acted like they were getting kicked out. But he probably just wanted an excuse to leave. He tipped pretty well if I recall correctly. I was on the date, but I am a server, so technically it's still my best date gone wrong story. I was fresh out of college, 22, and a long-term relationship, 5 years, and ended up moving to a new city for a fresh start. Went on a date with a cute guy from my new job. I know, rookie mistake, who told me within minutes of getting our drinks that he planned to be married and have at least 1 child in the next 2 years. I told him he'd better start looking. It didn't end well. I found out later it was the poor man's birthday. He kinda brought it on himself. The real rookie mistake was talking long-term relationship goals on a first date. I was not a server but a kitchen manager and head cook who was called to a table one night. It was one of those we want to meet the chef things. I put on a new chef coat and go out to the farthest reaches of the dining room to where earlier in the night we all noticed that the people there had asked to have the lights turned down. As I'm going there one of my server friends says quietly, "Buckle up for that." I get to the table and greet a very well-dressed college kid, probably no older than 20, who is not drinking or eating and is sweating profusely while sitting straight up in his seat like a mannequin. Then I look at his date. She was probably in her 50s or 60s, painfully thin, tan sagging skin, Too much neon pink lipstick circling busted up yellow grey teeth. She's got an empty bottle of wine in front of her and a ton of hoop bracelets. She's grinning at the guy and in a split second I could tell she was using her feet to rub the guy's crotch under the table. I exchanged some pleasantries with them for a minute and the guy asks if he can see the kitchen real quick because he used to work at the same restaurant but in a different city. I say sure, we'll be right back, etc. And as soon as we're out of earshot he says that his friends had set him up on a blind date and that woman is obviously a prostitute. He was freaking terrified. Like hostage situation terrified. So I told him I'll let him out the back door through the kitchen. I haven't seen anyone power walk to their car like that in my life and with that, he fled. Funny thing was that the lady he was with paid for both of their meals and left a large tip. I love the idea of this kid's friend setting him up with a H and selling it as a blind date, then laughing and laughing when he takes the bait. First date. She's doing all of the talking, but it's okay, because he's totally into it. Every time she changes the subject, he's more infatuated with her. She likes football and guns and trucks, redneck style, and he loves it. Then she starts going through the pictures on her phone. When she finally got around to mention that the 3 kids in the pictures were hers, I swear I actually heard his dong deflate. Hey, at least she's upfront. Work at a local restaurant. When they first opened about 3 years ago we had some guy come in with his girlfriend for dinner. All is going well, they're eating drinking when suddenly this guy's real longtime girlfriend's sister comes in to eat with one of her friends and decided to stop by and introduce herself. Says I'm whatever his name is girlfriend's sister and the girl he was on the date with flipped out, threw her drink at him and storms out. He runs out after her and I'm watching from the window as she's smacking him in the head with her purse. Wasn't a small one either. To the car. That's an awkward ride home, right? Too bad she didn't drive, she could have left him there. Wonder if he was able to save the relationship of either of his girlfriends that night, lol. 2 couples were having a lovely dinner and suddenly one of the ladies screamed. Champagne glasses had been delivered to their table, one with a diamond ring in it. As you might have guessed, the wrong couple got the ring and the look of horror on both the gentlemen's faces was quite a sight. I happened to be serving the other couple at the time and the only thing that sprung to mind was to drop my tray as distraction. It kinda worked as with the loud clatter all attention suddenly went to me and my colleague managed to quickly apologize for the mix up and rescue something of the situation. Still felt awful for the gents though. Holy crap, if a waiter fricked up a $6,000 ring onto the wrong table, that's a huge mistake. I worked at a popular chain restaurant as my first job. On Tuesdays we would have trivia night where each table who wanted to participate could make a team name and answer the questions asked over the loudspeaker. There was a table with these 2 people on a date but the guy constantly was on his phone. Walking past a few times you could tell he was texting someone else while on this date. Needless to say the woman wasn't too pleased. She decided to try and have a good time anyway and joined in on trivia. When it was time to announce the team names over the speaker she chose the name No Freaking For Him Tonight. The entire restaurant got a good laugh, but the poor guy didn't even notice, he was too busy with his phone. Proud of her, she owned it and took control to enjoy that night anyway. I work at a bar and there was a couple that would come in fairly often. One day they were sitting at the end of the bar and I had just taken their order when I overhear him say something to the effect of I just feel like we're just going through the motions. You know, he dumped her while they were waiting for their food. So after a few awkward minutes of talking and her crying, he asks if we can make the food to go. The whole thing made the entire bar pretty uncomfortable. Prime Steakhouse. Couple arguing. All of a sudden, the lady flips the whole table over food. Glasses. Flatware broken. Big mess. She storms out. Guy helps me clean up a mess, 20% tip. I had a couple that looked like something was up, having a long cocktail and dinner type date. I didn't think it was too extraordinary until the lady found me outside the restroom and told me that her husband asked her for a divorce. She hugged me and cried on my and-talked shoulder for like 10 minutes, not a regular. That is forever in a server time, so I was super happy that we weren't busy. I had no food coming up, and my friend tended to my other table. It would have been awful to blow her off. She stayed for dinner and they both got drunk. It sounds like they both knew what was coming up. I was on a plane flying from Abu Dhabi to NYC and the hottest guy sat next to me. We were in business class, so we were the two middle seats together. We started talking and it quickly became a great first date once we established we were both single. We totally connected and I got really excited as we had a lot in common until he mentioned that he doesn't think women should work and that he wanted kids immediately. I was 25 and just started my own company and kids were not on my mind. So I politely tried to watch a movie as my attraction to him came to a sudden halt and he kept tapping my shoulder to ask questions. Annoyed, I tried to go to sleep only to wake up to him fully spooning me and his arm around my waist. I got up immediately and went to the back of the plane to ask the flight attendant if I could change seats and she said the plane was all full. I went back to my seat. For the remaining 10 hours of the flight, it was awful. I'm a bartender. Witnessed a Tinder date at the bar top. Convo started somewhere with I have 7 panther tattoos. I just feel I really identify with the panther. Somewhere after that he spotted my tattoo of some molecular structures and asked what they were. I explained and he said I'm more of an anatomy man myself. Wink. Heard a snippet of all my past infidelities were never my fault. All the girls seduced me. I'm a man that just can't say number. Then ended when he asked the woman what she would do if she broke her leg while mowing the lawn. The poor lady just looked at me and said we're ready for the check, with the most defeated look on her face. Alright, not a date but a couple brought in their very cute little daughter, probably like 6, into our restaurant and I'm outside by their table when I hear mommy and daddy just don't love each other anymore. WHO the frick brings a kid to lunch to tell them about a divorce. Poor kid probably hates Greek food now. The last sentence was great. I waited tables in a small town when I was in college. We were one of the only restaurants in town. I had an early 20s couple come in one Saturday night and it was obvious that they were on a first date. The guy was trying to impress the girl by being a real douche to me by ordering me around and belittling me. I can handle that. Just kill him with kindness. So every time he was condescending or crappy to me I just gave a nice yes sir right away sir and did my job. He was so bad that other servers noticed. When he barked at me for his check, I promptly provided it for him. As he took his wallet out of his pocket, he dropped a condom on the ground. I picked it up and put it in on the table between both of them and said, "Sir, you dropped this." He denied that it was his and I said, "Yes it is. I just saw it fall out of your pocket." His date was furious. She immediately asked, "What's that for? What did you think was going to happen tonight? We just met." He tried to play it off but she got up and exclaimed, "Pay the bill and take me home now." She then turned to me and said, "I'm sorry," and walked away. I gave him his change right there and he said, "Thanks bro." And I told him anytime I didn't get a tip. But another table next to them saw the whole thing and became some of my regulars. This happened in the mid-90s. I know, I'm old. In a pretty conservative part of the country. The girl didn't look like the type that was down for a first date hookup. And yes, if you think the sex might happen then you should have a condom. Boys and girls. I once served an old friend's dad on a date with his girlfriend. I was unaware that he and my friend's mom had split up. So on my break I text her my condolences. Long story short, her parents were not split up but because I jumped to conclusions, they are now. Not a server, but there was a couple clearly on a first date seated in the booth right behind the booth my husband and I were seated in. The guy went on and on and on about traditional gender roles and how women don't know what they really want and are happier in life when a big strong man comes in and puts them in their place. That poor girl kept nodding and smiling and trying to be polite, but her eyes were screaming. Hubby and I had to switch seats cause I was ready to whack the guy over the head with a tiny frying pan. Our appetizer came in. But that's because you know how to handle a frying pan. Because of traditional gender roles. So the host told me that he just sat a party of 4 in my section. I approach the table and it's 2 guys and 2 girls. Looked like a double date and I get started. Toward the end of the night one of the girls gets up to use the restroom and the other girl at the table leans in and whispers to me saying that it's the other girl's birthday and asks if I could bring out a cake with a candle. This happens all the time so I put the order in, didn't really think anything of it. A few minutes later the cake is ready and the food runner brought it to the wait station, but the girl is nowhere to be found. So I leave it there for what seemed like ages until I spot her hastily walking out from the bathroom back to her table. I gather all the crowd I can, the other servers, a bartender, the food runner, and even the cook who made the cake for good measure. This is her special day, so let's make this a night to remember, right? We light the candle and get to the table, and the birthday girl is in tears. Like straight up bawling. Like her dog just died, boyfriend broke up with her, and she was diagnosed with cancer all at the same time, crying. This never happened to me before, and I have other tables, no time for this crap, so happy birthday to you, Hap. But I was the only one singing. The crowd of employees, the table, the entire restaurant, all dead silent during my aria. Should I have stopped? Not sure. All I know is that I didn't stop. I sang the whole dang song by myself, and when it came to the happy birthday dear, insert name here, I didn't know crying lady's name, so I just kind of mumbled happy birthday dear HMMHMMHMM at the end of the song. I just placed the cake down and walked back to grab their check even though they hadn't asked for it. Would this be considered a date? After the club, these guys brought a few girls in with them. The guys all knew each other, but the girls didn't. They were chatting and getting to know each other. One of the girls leave, but girl A and girl B remain. They ordered food. Everything was going well until girl A reached over and took some of girl B's fries. Girl B warns her, "Don't take my fkin fries." Girl A thinks she's joking, so she laughs and takes some more. All of a sudden girl B reaches over and decks this girl in the face and yells, "I told you not to take my FCKIN fries BTCH." Girl A starts fighting back and the guys are trying to register what happened. Eventually, my manager and the guys pull them apart and they leave. Girl B walks out the diner with the group of guys, but girl A decides to stay and call her friend to come get her. Guess the date wasn't successful. Fries can cock block too. TL. DR. Guys bring in dates after the club. Two girls fight over french fries. Date is over. In a deep voice girl B said, "Lay off me, I'm starving." I actually have one for this, even though I work at a gas station as a clerk. So these two come in, walk around for a bit, just talking, then make their way ever so slowly towards the condom shelf. Being the only thing they bought, I thought I'd loosen the tension and ask, "You two on a date tonight?" The guy looks me square in the eyes, and without missing a beat says, "We're on a fuck date. We're gonna frick until we can't feel our legs." I laugh until I'm purple, and he's been my best friend ever since. Sounds like a good date to me. Obligatory, not a server, but was out to dinner with my wife on vacation at Walt Disney World. We could see at another table that a young couple was on a date, and the guy was clearly more interested in whatever was going on with his phone. As the meal wore on, it became apparent he was texting another girl while he was on this date. Things blew up and she told him to leave, then just sat at the table sobbing quietly. It was heartbreaking to witness. A few years ago now, on Valentine's Day, two couples booked in, both with same surname, Perry. One of the guys asks if we can bring champagne out to them with conveniently submerged ring, just after the meal so he could propose. After one waiter asked the young waitress for the champagne to the Perry table with a wink, she proceeded to take the glasses to the other table, who had just arrived, so this made no sense as to why she'd done this. Massive mix-up ensues. I was working on the bar, so was far enough away to find it privately hilarious. Not a server but my own date. Mixed up, introverted and impotent when I was describing myself. Through sheer nervousness I didn't catch it at the time, only realized afterwards. We didn't see each other after that. My wife was a server at an upscale restaurant, and I'll never forget this story she told me. It's Valentine's Day, so the place is booked for the entire night, and this guy shows up looking to get a table without a reservation. The hostess tells him that they are booked solid, and unless there was a cancellation he wouldn't be able to get a table soon. Guy seems to accept this okay and goes to the bar to have a drink and wait for his date. A girl shows up and this guy is on his third gin and tonic and getting loud. She meets him at the bar and looks disappointed about the table. As they are discussing what to do next, things go sideways as the guy drunkenly screams about how that dumpy hostess lost his reservation that he made a week ago and he isn't leaving until they've got a table, blah blah blah. The poor hostess is a basket case and trying not to break down as the guy's date goes as pale as a ghost. Manager obviously comes out to see what the problem is, and the guy repeats his loud butthole-ish tirade against the 17-year-old hostess. Luckily, the manager had a spine and told the man to immediately leave before he calls the police. He refuses, so the manager calls the cops, and the guy decides he has made his point and tries to run, neglecting to pay for his drinks. Manager runs out, gets his plate number and almost gets hit, but the drunken jackass, as he is trying to flee, gets pulled over by the cops. Fails a sobriety test. Manager presses charges for assault and theft. This guy's poor date is now comforting the hostess, who by all accounts did her job and got lambasted for it. The most satisfying moment for me as a hostess was getting yelled at by a guy for losing his reservation. Having him aggressively pull out his phone and shove his reservation confirmation email in my face. And letting him know that the restaurant his reservation is confirmed at in the email is actually a restaurant about 4 blocks down the street. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.